Good morning to everyone, our devoted smallish crowd today in the sanctuary and all those of you on Zoom today. I suspect the time change and the weather may have played a part in today. Our call to worship today is by the Reverend Amy Mackenzie Quinn. Welcome to this common sacred space. Common because we all are welcome. Sacred because here we transform the ordinary and attend to the profound. We carry with us our regrets, doubts, fears, stories, laughter. May they inspire our worship. Above all, may we each meet what we most need to find on this day in this common sacred space. Welcome.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Midlands multi-platform worship service. My name is Beth Sperry. I currently serve on the pastoral care team and co-facilitate the Three Jewels Sangha. And I'm your worship associate today. For those joining online, please type into the chat box who you are and who you've brought with you. We will be recording the service, but personal sharing will be edited out. For those here in person, you've silenced your phones. Unitarian Universalism is a welcoming and inclusive religion. It encourages us to keep open hearts and minds because our own experience, conscience, and reason are the final authorities in religion. It affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person and that we are all connected to each other and to the earth. We send out a special welcome to any visitors today. We appreciate you spending some of your Sunday morning with us. If you have any questions, please let us know in person, in the chat box, by phone, or through our Facebook page. And if you're considering becoming a member of the fellowship, please contact our minister, Reverend Eric Severson, our office administrator, Wendy Altmeyer, or let us know of your interest in person, in the chat box, or on the visitor sign-in sheet. If you have a chalice or a candle at home and would like to join in our chalice lighting remotely, now would be a good time to get that ready. We will be including joys and sorrows this morning, which we have asked you to submit in advance. If you are on Zoom and did not have a chance to, please enter your joy or sorrow in the chat box at this time. So here are some highlights from this week's newsletter. There's a lot going on. COVID numbers continue downward. So today we will sing with masks on, as you are comfortable doing, and we will welcome indoor conversation after the service. If numbers continue in the right direction, masks may be optional in the next few weeks. And in April, we will likely relax the distance rule and allow food and drink. To schedule meetings in the building, please contact our office administrator, Wendy. See the new guidelines in your newsletter. We will continue the special collection through the end of March for the Midland County Emergency Food Pantry Network. So please give generously. The Midland Area Interfaith Friends meeting is this afternoon at 4 p.m. via Zoom. If you haven't received a link for that or would like more information, talk to me, talk to Reverend Eric. Those are great gatherings. One way to respond to the Ukraine refugee crisis is by donating to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. The second session of Exploring Unitarian Universalism, focused on UU history, will be this coming Saturday, March 19th. Register online through your newsletter or by emailing office@uufom.org. Our spring cleanup of southbound Eastman Avenue will be on Sunday, April 24th. And our biggest fundraiser, our most important fundraiser of the year, the Serendipity Auction, will be Saturday, May 14th, starting at 5 o'clock. This year's theme will be Under the Big Top, and the charity recipient, we are so happy to announce, will be the environmental group Little Forks Conservancy. So mark your calendars, register your donated items online by April 10th, and watch for more details. For these and all the latest news and coming events, please see your Candleflame newsletter, the UUFOM News Facebook group, or uufom.org.
Thank you, Beth. For our chalice lighting words today, we have the words of the late Reverend Judith L. Quarles. At this hour in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. Thank you, Beth. Please join Melanie and me now in singing our opening hymn. Those in the room have hymnals available to you. Sing as you are willing and able. And for those of you at home, the words will appear on your screen. The song is 347, Gather the Spirit by Jim Scott. Let us sing together.
Gather in hope, compassion, and strength.
Thank you. Please be seated.
No? There we are. Our first reading is from A Song of Believing, Part 1, by Portland, Maine author Brian Doyle, published online in 2006 at eurekastreet.com. As a fan's note for grace and a quavery chant against the dark, I sing a song of things that make us grin and bow, that just for an instant let us see sometimes the web and weave of merciful, endless possible, and the incomprehensible, inexhaustible, inexplicable, yes.
Such as, to name a few, the way the sun crawls over the rim of the world every morning, like a child rising, beaming from a pool, all fresh from the womb of the dark, and the way jays hop and damselflies do that geometric arrow amazing thing, and bees inspect, and birds probe, and swifts chitter.
And the way the young mother at the bus stop has her infant swaddled and huddled against her chest like a blinking extra heart. And the way a very large woman wears the tiniest miniskirt with a careless, airy pride that makes me so happy I can hardly squeak.
And the way seals peer at me owlishly from the surf like rubbery grandfathers. And the way cormorants in the ocean never ever get caught by onrushing waves, but disappear casually at the last possible second, so you see their headlong black stories written on the wet walls of the sea like moist petroglyphs.
And the way no pavement, asphalt, macadam, concrete, cement thing can ultimately defeat a tiny, relentless, green thing.
And the way people sometimes lean eagerly face first into the future. And the way infants finally discover to their absolute agogishment that those fists swooping by like tiny fleshy comets are theirs.
And the way, when my mom gets caught unawares by a joke, she barks with laughter so infectious that people grin 2 towns over. And the way one of my sons sleeps every night with his right leg hanging over the side of his bed like an oar, no matter how many times I fold him back into the boat of the bed.
And the way the refrigerator hums to itself in 2 different keys. And the way the new puppy noses through hayfields like a headlong, exuberant, hairy tractor.
And the way my daughter makes one immense final cookie the size of a door when she makes cookies. And the way one son hasn't had a haircut since Napoleon was emperor.
And the way crows arrange themselves. Sometimes on the fence, like the notes of a song I don't yet know. And the way car engines sigh for a few minutes after you turn them off. And the way your arm goes all totally nonchalant when you're driving through summer with the window down. And the way people touch each other's forearms when they're scared.
And the way every once in a while, someone you hardly know says something so piercingly honest that you want to just kneel down right there in the grocery store near the pears.
And the way little children fall asleep with their mouths open like fish. And the way sometimes just a sidelong glance from someone you love makes you all shaky for a second before you can get your mask back on.
And the way some people, when they laugh, tilt their heads way back like they need more room for all the hilarity in their mouths.
And the way hawks and eagles always look so annoyed. And the way people shuffle daintily on icy pavements. And the way churches smell dense with hope. And the way that men's pants bunch up at the knees when they stand after kneeling at church.
And the way knees are gnarled. And the way faces curve around the mouth and eyes according to how many times you have smiled over the years.
And the way people fall asleep in chairs by the fire. And snap awake, startled and amazed, unsure just for a second which planet exactly they are on, which is a question we should probably all ask far more often than we do. Thank you, Beth.
We are a caring community where we share special joys that lift our hearts and sorrows that bring us pain. In these times, we are heard. When we are heard, we are honored. When we are honored, we are healed.
As a pastoral response today, I share a prayer for the Faithifiers by author and UU Faithify co-founder Hillary Allen. Gracious One, keep watch on the innovators, the trailblazers, the takers of risk. Invite us to be persons of vision and integrity. Help us to remember the mystery from which possibility is born. Lead us to honor the sacred space where ministries, idealists, and realists meet. Encourage us to imagine more than just what is. Fill our hearts in times of discouragement. Keep our eyes on the long now. Through our efforts, let us know the fruits of connection and a deeper faith. Amen.
O ye that seret, all seret at bake, all bake at aldash, all aldash at nichten. All Isten at Sukshek Ninshen. All
Where there is faith, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is blessing. Where there is blessing, there is gold. Where there is gold, there is no need.
Please join in the English if you'd like.
Where there is faith, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is blessing. Where the second part of A Song of Believing. Look, I know all too well that the story of the world is entropy. Things fly apart. We sicken, we fail, we grow weary, we divorce. We are hammered and hounded by loss and accidents and tragedies. We slide away into the dark oceans behind the stars.
But I also know that we are carved of immense, confusing holiness. That the whole point for us is grace under duress. And that you either take a flying leap at nonsensical, illogical, unreasonable ideas like marriage, and marathons, and democracy and divinity, or you huddle behind the brooding wall.
I believe that the coolest things cannot be measured, calibrated, calculated, gauged, weighed, or understood, except sometimes by having a child patiently explain it to you, which is another thing that should happen far more often than it does.
In short, I believe in believing, which doesn't make sense, which gives me hope.
In contrast, I now invite you to join responsively in our final reading, number 650, Cherish Your Doubts, by the late Reverend Robert T. Weston. It's on the screen and in your books. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the attendant of truth.
The key to the door of knowledge. It is the servant of discovery.
A belief which may not be questioned binds us to error, for there is incompleteness and imperfection in every belief.
Doubt is the touchstone of truth. It is an acid which eats away the false.
Let no one fear the truth, that doubt may consume it, for doubt is a testing of belief.
The truth stands boldly and unafraid. It is not shaken by the testing.
For truth, if it be truth, arises from each testing stronger and more secure.
Those that would silence doubt are filled with fear. Their houses are built on shifting sands.
But those who fear not doubt and know its use are founded on rock.
They shall walk in the light of growing knowledge. The work of their hands shall endure.
Therefore, let us not fear doubt, but let us rejoice in its help.
It is to be the wise as a staff to the blind. Doubt is the attendant of truth.
Our next interlude this morning, shared by Melanie Willison, consists of two organ compositions written in the 1800s. Verset 23 in B-flat major by Leon Bollmann, and Poco Allegretto by César Franck.
Thank you again, Melanie. Before I begin, I'd like to offer everyone in the sanctuary an apology for singing without a mask, my singing without a mask. It was an oversight, and I apologize. When was the last time you spoke with a child? Actually took time, stopped and took time to empathize and speak with, not to, a child. Asked about something they loved or had learned. I really miss having our kids with us to start the service on Sundays, and I hope you do too. They'll be rejoining us in the sanctuary beginning with our April services. And I hope we all will take time to reintroduce ourselves and get to know them again. As theologians, children tend to make meaning in ways unlike adults. Brian Doyle, the author of today's reading, wrote, "The coolest things cannot be measured, calibrated, calculated, gauged, weighed, or understood except sometimes by having a child patiently explain it to you," which is another thing that should happen far more often than it does. But it goes beyond asking a teenager to explain the latest applications on your phones or computers. Have you ever asked a child to explain some aspect of life? Why do birds fly and bees buzz? Children may lack the experience and perspective of an adult, yes, but in their innocence, they often are able to perceive and express true and wise things, to make meaning very clearly. And what are they passionate about? Some of the most prophetic words and deeds around the world in the last few decades have come from child activists. Malala Yousafzai advocating for education for girls. Greta Thunberg demanding stronger action on climate change. X Gonzalez, David Hogg, and others calling BS on the lack of action to stop gun violence. Jazz Jennings helping transgender kids and teens. We have much to learn. 2 weeks ago, I spoke about our interdependence, about seeing truth only in glimpses. I spoke about how when my eyes are opened to the cruelty, pain, and neglect we sometimes inflict when we are at our worst, that I often doubt our capacity to love and care. And that in such moments I must believe that there is more love somewhere. In other words, I must have faith, must trust in possibility. Because for me, the alternative might be utterly immobilizing fear and depression. It's hard to hold on to faith right now. Faith in public institutions, in elected leaders, in the checks and balances of our governance structures. Even faith in human nature is hard to maintain. You could have just knocked me over with a feather the first time I heard somebody mention World War III in relation to Putin's war in Ukraine. How did we get here? What exactly can we put our faith in? And at the same time, we are equally called to doubt the veracity of many claims to truth, the big lie about the 2020 election, Putin's false assertions that Ukraine is the aggressor in the conflict, conservatives' ridiculous claims that necessary medical care for transgender youth constitutes child abuse. We have every good reason and a moral duty to doubt such claims. In our call to worship, Reverend Amy McKenzie invited us to recognize that we carry our regrets, doubts, fears, stories, and laughter with us. She set the stage for the possibility that these very things, symbolized by our chalice flame, might inspire us to find what we need in this common sacred space. In the responsive reading, the late Reverend Robert Weston exhorted us to cherish our doubts, for doubt is the attendant touchstone of truth. It eats away at falsehood. It is the key to the door of knowledge, the servant of discovery. Doubt, he said, is a testing of belief. We need not fear it, but rejoice in its help for the knowledge and wisdom it brings. Ours is a living tradition of seekers, of doubters. But we also are part of a great community of faith. The late Reverend Judith Quarles invited us to continue holding on to a faith in the not uniquely Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. Brian Doyle is not, to my knowledge, a Unitarian Universalist. But in today's readings, he named all those things that make us grin and bow, that just for an instant let us see sometimes the web and weave of merciful, the endless possible, the incomprehensible, inexhaustible, inexplicable yes. Things we might still hold faith in right now. I could read that litany all day of things he wrote and keep finding new meaning in them, new hopes and new memories. He shares with us truths about the natural world, about animal instinct, about the power of love, about human nature, and more. Yes, he says, the story of the world is entropy, a gradual decline of all things into disorder. Things fly apart, we sicken, we fail, we grow weary, we divorce. We are hammered and hounded by loss and accidents and tragedies. This aptly describes at least a few households within our fellowship right now. But we are complex and blessed beings. As he put it, veritably carved from immense confusing holiness. He suggests that the whole point for us is learning to show grace under duress. In such moments, he said, you either take a flying leap at nonsensical, illogical, unreasonable ideas like marriage and marathons and democracy and divinity, or you huddle behind the brooding wall. Many of you know that I spent the larger part of 20 years brooding over the initial rejection of my seeking ministerial fellowship. 2 decades later, older and wiser, I hope, I again took the leap along with my wife, Ellen, at the nonsensical, illogical, unreasonable, but faith-filled idea that yes, I could be a Unitarian Universalist minister. In what or whom do you put your faith? I asked this question of folks in our Friends of UUFOM Facebook group yesterday and of our Zoom guests this morning. Here are some of their responses. I put my faith in family. I put faith in myself. I put faith in love, in community, nature, science, education, friends, the universe, kindness, and much more. Whether you were able to take part in this poll or not, I invite you to keep asking yourself the question, in what or whom do I put my faith? Maybe write your answers in a journal or make a blog post or do an art project based on your answers. Sometimes our answers are simple and clear and come quickly to us. Sometimes they are not clear at all. We need time for the elves in our brains to find the answers. And sometimes how we answer may depend on circumstances, where we are in our life journey, or any number of variables. We can spend a lot of time brooding. And sometimes, when we're inspired or invited or simply fed up, we gather the courage to leap, to risk breaking our necks, breaking our hearts, for those things, principles, people in which we put our faith. I've seen faith referred to also as trust. In what do you put your trust? In fact, I asked that question a year ago, January. I don't know if we have it to share, but the answers are very similar. And in that same way, I suppose doubt might be viewed as distrust. I'm inspired to corrupt Shakespeare's turn of phrase and say, to trust or not to trust. But to frame it in such a false choice would be disingenuous, because we are complex beings capable of cognitive dissonance. I believe that we exercise both faith and doubt, that we trust and distrust. The challenge isn't really in knowing what to put our faith in, but in balancing faith and doubt. I have no answer for that question. That's something we'll each have to figure out. One of the things I put my faith in is children's capacity to learn and adapt. They're constantly taking things in, learning about life, whether we choose to teach them or not. And oftentimes, children have a natural passion to side with love and compassion and to do what's right. For Brian Doyle, believing doesn't always make sense, but it also gives him hope. And having reason for hope, it seems to me, suggests an underlying faith. So when you feel that niggling doubt, take some time to identify what is preventing your trust. And when you have that tingle of hope, tease it apart to find the sources of your faith. May we continue to hold faith in the chorus of life resounding as one. May we hold faith and doubt as equal and necessary to our survival and happiness. May we seek, let me say this again. May we seek the clarity and wisdom of our children. May we remember the mystery from which possibility is born. May our doubts inspire us and our faith sustain us. Blessed be, and amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Eric. In accordance with our values and the stirrings of our hearts, we now invite you to support the mission of this fellowship financially. Please take a moment to write a check or to make a note to donate online at uufom.org. For those in person, the offering plate will be available as you exit today for your donations to the Midland County Food Pantry Network all month. Your offering is greatly appreciated and gratefully received. And thank you so much for your generosity. Our offertory music shared by Melanie is the song Light Blue Crystal, written for the Irish harp and composed by Michio Aramaki.
Thank you again, Melanie. For our chalice extinguishing today, we have these words from my internship supervisor, the Reverend Dr. Michael A. Schuler. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the servant of truth. Question your convictions, for beliefs too tightly held strangle the mind and its natural wisdom. Suspect all certitudes, for the world whirls on, nothing abides. Yet in our inner rooms, full of doubt and inquiry and suspicion, let a corner be reserved for trust. For without trust, there is no space for communities to gather or for friendships to be forged. Indeed, this is the small corner where we connect and reconnect with each other. Thank you to all who made the service possible today. Thank you for joining us today. We now invite our Zoom guests to join in breakout rooms and after our postlude, our in-person guests to stay for further conversation. Whatever you may encounter in the coming week, please know that the love of this community goes with you. Whenever we're together again, until we're together again, blessings.
Breakout rooms are open.